Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our fourth and final installment in our 2023 NSF-GRFP Application Preparation Series. I'm Dr. Matthew Plusser with the Graduate School Office of Fellowships and Benefits, and today we're going to talk about broader impacts, which is a key component of your application. You'll talk about your intellectual merit, and you'll talk about your broader impacts. So what we'll cover today, we'll go through some eligibility review in case any of our participants today or future viewers start here. We'll go over what that eligibility looks like briefly. Then we'll dive into broader impacts. What is a broader impact? Some examples, who your audience is, how to frame this in your writing, what a broader impact should be, i.e. how should it be presented, getting started communicating value, and proofreading. We'll have a couple frequently asked questions at the end, and then we'll go over some resources, and then we'll stop the recording and we'll be able to take questions more candidly in conversation format with our participants here today. So what is the NSF-GRFP? It is a federally funded fellowship program that supports a strong base of scientists and engineers here in the United States, and with diversity in who those scientists and engineers are, diversity of disciplines, diversity of areas of study and research. This is the oldest fellowship of this kind and has a history of supporting individuals who go on to great success later on. A number of Nobel laureates who are NSF-GRFPs, college presidents, college deans, top researchers, government officials, and leaders in corporate America as well. The fellowship is a 5-year program, 3 of which are funded. Why is it 5 years and only 3 are funded? Oftentimes your programs will come with specific requirements, such as you must work as a TA for 1 year, or you must work in a specific lab experience or do a lab rotation before you are settled. And this also does allow you to be able to utilize other awards that you may have, and for you to utilize your the freedom that the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship does provide you when you would like that to be. So some students will use it right away, starting at the beginning of their PhD. Others will wait until they start their research, they've passed their qualifying exams, and they'll save their 3 years of funding for that point. That 3 years of funding includes $37,000 a year paid monthly, tuition coverage over those 3 years, as well as career life balance. If you need medical leave, family leave, parental leave, and some of that can be paid to an extent if you are on tenure or if you have to take a leave during your funded year. You have access to other professional development opportunities, namely the NSF intern program, as well as GRIP and GROW. Then wherever you take the NSF-GRFP, you could have other benefits with that. Institutions will sometimes provide their own benefits, and even sometimes your lab PI will add to that as well. Here at the University of Utah, during your 3 years of funding, the graduate school will pay you for your health insurance, and we will also provide you for each of those 3 years $2,000 for research expenses and professional development. So if you need equipment to conduct your research, if you need to travel to a test site, if you are participating in conferences or professional development opportunities, that $2,000 a year for 3 years can be used towards all of that. And some PIs will also add a bonus to that, a couple thousand a year on top of your $37,000. Other important benefits are that the GRFP is mobile. You can take this anywhere in the United States as long as it is a qualifying program. So you couldn't take the CISLIC because they do not have masters or PhDs in a research-based STEM field, but you can take this to other schools, University of Utah, USU, MIT, etc. Hundreds of opportunities there. Occasionally, this can provide you with a step up in graduate admission. We hear stories of our students who applied to a very big program and they were either waitlisted or, sometimes the reality, not enough seats for all the qualified applicants. They get denied admission. they'll call up those programs and say, hey, I just got the NSF-GRFP, and that sometimes will fast track acceptance. This is an NSF program, and that does carry a bit of cachet in its name and what it is. And the NSF-GRFP can provide prestige and recognition, and it does boost your resume or CV. So whether you go into academia, or government and nonprofit work, into the private sector, the corporate world, having NSF on your resume can add quite a bit to your opportunities. And this does establish a pattern of seeking external funding and hopefully getting that external funding, particularly for those of you who are going into academia, and as well as to an extent, those of you going into government and nonprofit work. You'll be expected to write grants, grant proposals to get money to fund your research, fund your initiatives, fund your programs. And this will give you a head start in that by simply applying for this. You're getting that ball rolling and sharpening those skills. To be eligible, you must be a United States citizen, national, or permanent resident, and enrolled or intend to enroll. Some of you are finishing your senior year. Some of you are juniors going into your senior year this fall, so you might not have even applied to grad school yet, and that is perfectly fine. You're in the right place still. So enrolled or intend to enroll in a research-based master's or doctorate program in an eligible STEM field. And we have the basic fields listed here: chemistry, engineering, life science, etc. And then each of these will have a lot of subcategories, different panels. And you can see more of this in previous presentations, as well as on the solicitation from the NSF, which is on their website, nsfgrfp.org. So who is not supported? Joint science and professional programs like MD, PhD, JD, PhD, NSW, PhD, business administration or management degrees, counseling, social work, history outside the history of science, and education outside of STEM education. And a really important note here on STEM education: this is a very important area for the NSF, and we want and need more people in this category. However, there's a caveat here. This is not, I'm getting a master's in math education to go be a high school math teacher. This is, I am getting a PhD, whether it's in math or education, and I'm studying how math is taught so that we can come up with new methods that those high school teachers and those middle school teachers can employ in their classrooms. So that's really where the focus on STEM education is, and also education technology falls under that bucket as well. Research within disease-related goals. Unless you're biomedical engineering, biomed is the only area where you can be specifically hitting medical and disease and clinical trial areas. Patient-oriented research is not allowed. Epidemiological or medical behavioral studies, outcomes research, pharmaceutical, non-pharmacological, behavioral interventions, and similar studies are also not eligible. So this is what your study cannot entail, but this can be a part of your broader impact. And we're going to talk about that today. So for example, you might be doing something in neuroscience and you're studying a concept, a theory, but then your results might be utilized by neurologists who will then do patient-oriented research and clinical trials for Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, what have you. So that's a broader impact, and that's okay. Just your research project cannot entail these things. The application has three primary components. You have your transcripts from any institution that you have attended, not just those that you have graduated from. For those of you who will be applying as a first-year graduate student, so this October, you will be in the first year of your PhD or master's. There is no transcript, but what you would do is go to your registrar's office and get enrollment verification to state, I am indeed attending the University of Utah or whatever institution you are attending in such and such qualified program. Then we have two statements: personal statement and graduate research plan statement, or your research proposal. We're going to talk about broader impacts, which feeds into both of these statements today. And then we have reference letters. 2 are required. 1 or 0 will lead your application to not be reviewed at all. We do recommend 3, and you can actually submit up to 5 names. So let's say and you will indicate first, second, third, fourth, fifth choice. So let's say your first choice and your third choice, for whatever reason, they were not able to upload a letter of recommendation on time. For whatever reason, life does happen. You will still have 2, 4, and 5 who did upload their letters of recommendation, and that will still ensure that you have 3 letters of recommendation being reviewed by your reviewers and taken into consideration. Okay, so we're going to jump in now to broader impacts. Well, what is a broader impact? Let's start with what the NSF requires of you. And this comes directly from the 2022 solicitation. The 2023 for this upcoming application cycle has not been released yet. Traditionally, that comes out end of June, early July. So in the next 4 to 6 weeks, you should see that coming out. Both statements, your research plan and your personal statement, must address NSF's review criteria of intellectual merit and broader impacts. Intellectual merit and broader impacts must be addressed individually under separate headings in both statements to provide reviewers with information necessary to evaluate the application with respect to both criteria. So essentially, you have these two concepts, the intellectual merit and broader impact, that have to be weaved into both of your statements, but you have to have a specific header. Broader impact must be a subhead. Intellectual merit must be a subhead. No separate headings, no review. And as I tell my students every year, if you do not receive the fellowship that you apply for, I want it to be because the application pool was so competitive, and it was really a rough decision for the reviewers and the organizations to draw that line of who gets the award and who doesn't. I do not want the reason that you don't get this to be for formatting issues. We want to make sure you have 0 formatting issues, because that we don't want that to be a barrier for you. So what is a broader impact? We know we have to include this into both of our statement. This is activities where you engage with and seek to better the wider community and society outside of your program, outside of your discipline, outside of your lab, outside of your specific research question, and conducting that research. This includes how you as a leader seek to better society. So we're talking about broader impacts, how your research will impact society, and then also how you will impact society. So the NSF is investing in you as a fellow, as a researcher, as a scientist, but also you as a leader. So there are those 2 different dimensions that you do need to keep in mind here. This includes how your research will positively affect society. Efforts can be big, small, individual, part of a group. Don't ignore efforts outside of STEM. Broader impacts shows your passion and your interest, as well as your acumen for leadership and project management. How are community and society defined? Well, largely this is left to you as the applicant here. You have the opportunity and really the responsibility to define what is the community that you are impacting. This could be a particular demographic. You're impacting, let's say you're doing STEM education and you're primarily impacting how math is being taught at the high school level. So you're impacting high schoolers who are going to go to college. You might be doing research with the Great Salt Lake. That's your community is going to be the Wasatch Front. That's who's going to be impacted largely by the Great Salt Lake, as well as different economic factors. You might be doing research. Your test site might be a specific lake or swamp or what have you, and your community that you're impacting positively through your research and your leadership could be that locale, that area. This can be a geographic region, and also consider organizations. Are you going to be working with organizations, federal government, nonprofits, community schools, specific demographics, and specific disciplines? So are you looking at a interdisciplinary connection here? Are you impacting things outside of your discipline? So let's say your math, will you be impacting history? That's kind of a stretch, but it is possible. That would be a very, very interesting broader impact of interdisciplinary connection. Here are just some examples. You might see some things that reflect your experience here or your potential impacts to come. So remember, broader impacts are what you have done, and what you plan to do, as well as what you're currently doing right now. So these are just examples. If you don't see yourself in these type of broader impacts, that's also okay. So improving STEM education through outreach, educator training, individual tutoring and mentoring, efforts to cultivate a strong and diverse STEM workforce. So you may have experience in industry, increase public awareness, understanding, and engagement with science, bridging a gap between academia and industry. So how has science been researched and results have been proven? How is that taken and implemented into the private sector, into industry, into the corporate world? You may have experience in that area. Improving daily life for individuals or communities in one way or another. This could be STEM related. This might not be STEM related. You may have a long history of being involved with certain organizations that you're passionate about, such as literacy, homelessness, refugee services, that show your leadership and how you've made a positive and tangible impact that have nothing to do with science. Please include those as well. Participating in national efforts, including policy work, whether with Congress, the State Department, national defense, national security, among others, as well as state governments, local governments, impacting the economic competitiveness in the country, and strengthening the infrastructure for interdisciplinary academic research and education. So we talked about a lot here that you may be able to make connections with your own experience, your own history, as well as what you see yourself doing as a leader and as a researcher moving forward. You have to keep in mind here who your audience is. Obviously, we've got our reviewers. We're keeping those in mind at all times. That's going to be faculty, researchers all across the country who will be reviewing your application. So reviewers aside, who is your audience? And I want you to think about this less as who's going to read my paper, but more as whose life is going to be positively changed through me as a leader or me as a researcher, the results of my project. And you'll detail this separately in your statements, how you're impacting things as a leader, that will be in your personal statement, how your research will positively impact others, community, society, organizations, that will be in your research proposal. List who your key partners will be. So you have those who you're going to be impacting, your service audience, you might say. So let's use the example of researching methodologies for teaching math. And your audience, the community that you're going to be impacting is going to be high school students. Well, are there other ripples there as well? Your methodology may include how to better engage parents in their children's math education, how to better engage other disciplines. How does math education intersect with English education in high school? Quite a bit. We don't think about that, but does quite a bit under the umbrella of college readiness. Those two disciplines work hand in hand. So how can your research impact that? Then who are your key partners? Well, if I'm studying math education and I plan to implement in, let's say, sophomore high school classrooms, my key partners are going to be high schools. It's going to be a school district or school districts. It could be the State Board of Education. It could be the Federal Department of Education. It could be a number of different key partners that you have. So they might not necessarily be the people who are impacted. They are benefiting from your research, but they're going to help facilitate your broader impact, facilitate you sharing your research results to get those tangible impacts. And be specific about your constituency, who your audiences are outside of the reviewers. It's easy for us, and oftentimes we do say, society, the community. Well, that's great. Yes, impacting high schoolers is definitely impacting society, but don't be vague saying society. List out who your constituencies are, who you are impacting. Okay, so how to frame a broader impact. Link wherever possible how your research and broader impacts connect to the NSF's Big 10 ideas. I encourage you to look this up on the NSF's website. Just Google NSF Big 10 ideas and you'll see that come up. on broadening and strengthening science participation. So how are your broader impacts helping get younger populations involved with science, getting them interested in science, getting them exposed to science? How are you doing that in other ways as well with a broader community? Identify how your connection to specific groups, organizations, or communities addresses their larger issues. So we've got the NSF's Big 10 ideas. If you're able to connect to that, that's fantastic. But then we have other issues here. Going with my constant example in this particular presentation, math education impacting high schoolers here. What are the larger issues that we're dealing with there? And how does your research impact that? Well, you're dealing with college readiness issues here, college attainment, cost of education. When you have more impactful high school and middle school math education, you're spending less time in college doing redoing math or doing remedial math, like those 1,000 or 900 math classes that you may have had to take. I certainly did. That costs you money and prolongs your time to completion. So those are big national issues that you may be impacting. It might not be directly impacting, but it could be a ripple. Still important to talk about and take into consideration. And build upon your strengths and address your weaknesses. Why are you going to be the right person through your research or through your leadership to impact the change that you're talking about? And do you have some weaknesses that will be addressed or need to be addressed in one way or another? And that could be by partnering with another organization. That could be by, I'm just barely starting grad school and I will be addressing this weakness in coursework or what have you. There's a lot of different ways that you can address that in a very compelling, mature way. You also want to consider evaluation and assessment where at all possible. You want to quantify the impact of previous activities as best as possible. You mentored, you tutored high school or elementary school children. You taught elementary school kids how to read. Can you quantify that? Approximately how many students did you serve in how many classrooms over how many years? Have you, or how has your previous broader impacts helped you pursue graduate school, research, and later leadership opportunities? So kind of viewing your broader impacts as stepping stones. I led my high school science club, which gave me a boost in college and led me to pursue additional opportunities, which led me to leading the Women in Science or Women in Society of Women Engineers initiatives, which led me to being a national leader as a student, as an undergrad, which is leading to these goals that I have, these broader impacts that I would like to facilitate through my research and after I graduated with my PhD. How will the effectiveness of your proposed broader impacts be measured? Is there a way to measure it? How will that be done? How will you be connected to that afterwards? How will you define the value of your proposed broader impacts? So this is super important here. We're going to talk about this later on, communicating value. You can't just say, this is the impact I'm going to have. You don't want broader impact for the sake of broader impact for the sake of broader impact. You want a broader impact because it's going to be valuable and impactful. Broader impact being impactful, groundbreaking. So why is taking your math education results from your project and implementing that in high school, why is that valuable? It's valuable for a lot of reasons, but you have to state that. Show that you see that this is a key and valuable contribution that you're making. It's not just a contribution that does not have value. So keep that in mind, value. So what should your broader impacts look like? So not saying the specific, like the content, here are some things that you need to consider as you write your narrative in your personal statement and your research proposal. How your activities are aligned with your research proposal narrative. Define how these broader impacts are important to your research. So when it comes to your research proposal, you're conducting research, you're going to have results, and then those lead to broader impacts. So there should be connection there, but you don't go and study marine life and then say, we're impacting English class in middle school. There's no connection there between those two. So when you talk about your research broader impacts, bring that back to your research question. Why are you conducting this research? Why is this research helpful? Why is this research important? And then that helps define the value for your broader impacts. How your activities are aligned with your personal statement. Describe why these particular impacts are valuable for you and your future as a researcher, your future as a scientist, your future as a leader. So how is this helping you read how are these broader impacts helping you reach your goals? How are these helping you become a leader? Because remember, you're talking about your goals and your personal statement, and you're looking to the future. And the future isn't next year. The future is, what do the next 30 years look like for you at this particular moment? So how are these broader impacts helping you get to that 10-year, 20-year, 30-year goal mark, with whatever that might be? How your activities are innovative, creative, and cutting edge. This is important with how you just describe your research, period, but you want this to extend to your broader impacts. Why is this innovative? This is why it's important for me to share this with this population in this particular way through these particular initiatives. That's the creative aspect, or we're cutting edge because of XYZ. Be as specific as possible. Hone in on the numbers where you are able, quantify your impact as best as you are able. And especially as you're looking at your proposed broader impacts, you're proposing, you're not saying I've already done this, but you're proposing this. So for example, math education impacting high schools, if you're partnering with the State Board of Education, then you might look at, well, how many high schools are there in the state of Utah? Or let's say you're going to partner with Salt Lake School District, which is much more scalable for a PhD project. You're working with the director of secondary education curriculum for that school district. How many high school students are there? How many high schools are there? How many high school math teachers are there? Those are some of the different numbers that you're able to quantify as you propose your broader impact with that example. Be specific about the community and the constituents you aim to serve. Don't just say society will be better because of this. Well, who in society will have their life improved because of this? And in what way will their life be improved? Be realistic. Don't undercommit or promise too much. There's that saying out there, under promise, over deliver, which is great. It makes you look good. But with this, you want to find that sweet spot. Don't undercommit. You need to commit to some very scalable thing, but don't promise too much. One thing that happened to me when I was working on my PhD or my doctorate, my dissertation, I came up with this proposed project, and my faculty chair said, Matthew, this is like a 10-year, multi-million-dollar funded project. This is not a dissertation project. Scale that down. Scale that down. Scale that down. So you don't want to say, I will get my results from my research, and then I'm changing in the next year how the entire United States teaches math. That's not going to happen. And your reviewers are going to look at that, and they'll probably give a little bit of a chuckle at that sort of hubris of, in 1 year, I'm going to change how the entire country teaches education or teaches math, including how special ed through those avenues teaches math, how inner city schools teach math because they have different concerns than a suburban school or Title I schools, etc. All different concerns. So you want that scaled. Don't undercommit, don't overpromise. And how your impact supports your goals. What are your personal goals? Career-wise, you as a leader, do you it's okay to say, I'm, as a scientist, I'm going down this path. And then at one point, I do want to pursue a seat in Congress, the House, the Senate, so that I can impact policy. Well, how do your broader impacts as in your personal statement and your research statement help you achieve that goal. But if that's a goal of yours, that's a great goal to talk about in your personal statement. How will your broader impacts help facilitate that for you? So to get started, I suggest taking some time to reflect on your past and your present. Build a record of your broader impacts. And again, these can be big, these can be small, these can be things that you did individually or with a group or with an organization. So as we've talked about previously in how you frame your previous research experience, same goes with your broader impacts. You may have been one of 20, but you were a very important cog in that group. What did you as a group accomplish, and what was your contribution to that group? Don't feel that you have to reinvent the wheel. This is super, super important. Build upon an existing foundation where and when possible. So you might be able to go into existing organizations and say, hey, we've got some results here. We've got some new methodologies here that can help improve this, for the most part, already well-oiled machine, and just increasing your efficacy. Like if you're coming out with a new methodology for teaching math or teaching biology, you're not going into the schools and saying, okay, we're tearing down the entire 6-year math curriculum and starting all over again. You're bringing in new methodologies for various concepts, for algebra, not for trigonometry. You don't need to tear down geometry and all those other areas, just one particular area. So how can you build upon an existing foundation? Connect your broader impacts to the past. How have previous impacts been stepping stones for you to get where you are today? And how are you continuing the work that you did previously? So for example, you may have, and this is a really simplified example, you may have been working with elementary school students when you were in high school, helping them learn their multiplication tables and how to divide and do basic math. What did that lead to? That led to something in high school. Then that led to pursuing a STEM degree, and then being involved in like science organizations, Society of Women Engineers, or what have you, where you did XYZ, which then led you to where you are today. So you see, it's a series of events. So that's one. How have these been stepping stones for you? Then let's look at number two. So you when you were in high school, you started your early broader impacts were going to an elementary school and helping teach 9-year-olds how to multiply. That's great. How are you coming full circle back to that? How are your broader impacts going back and helping elementary school students learn math? So if you are able to show that full circle, if your broader impacts do go full circle, that's great illustration to have. And then, of course, talk with your faculty advisor. I can't stress this enough. Your faculty advisors are a key partner. For those of you who are undergrads, or maybe you are in grad school and you just barely started and you don't have a faculty advisor yet, that's okay. Who is a faculty mentor that you have? It could be an undergrad instructor that you've worked a lot with. It could be a PI outside of your program who you worked in their lab for a few years. They can be great assets in planning and discussing your broader impacts. Communicating value. It is very important to communicate the why factor with your broader impacts. Describe the activities and the engagement. That's important. You need to talk about that, but that's only half the story. Discuss why your completed or proposed broader impacts were or are important, and why they're necessary. Why are they of value? Again, broader impact isn't just for the sake of doing something. It needs to be purposeful. That's where the value comes from, the purposeful nature of those activities. Illustrating for your reviewers the value helps highlight the importance and the impact of those activities. And again, as for you as a researcher and you as a leader. Proofreading and seeking feedback is something you should be doing constantly throughout your application process. So between now and when you hit submit, you want to have multiple sets of eyes, a diverse group of individuals reviewing your personal statement, your research statement. Identify various partners from your faculty mentor, classmates, friends, roommates. Seek feedback outside of STEM, not just in STEM, and those in other areas of STEM outside your particular discipline. So your creative writing roommate, and if you're a math PhD student, that physics roommate is also going to be a really good asset there, as well as more seasoned grad students in your program, colleagues in your lab, other faculty, et cetera, et cetera. You want a good, diverse group of individuals. Proofreaders should walk away with an understanding of why your broader impacts are important and how they have positively or will positively impact the community. So again, your proofreaders, they might not understand the science, they might not understand the minutia of your project, but they should be able to walk away regarding your broader impacts and say, oh, they're going to really change college readiness through adjusting how math is taught in high school. That's a basic key takeaway, but that's what you want them grasping. Additionally, proofreaders should grasp the value of your proposed broader impacts, who they will be impacting, so who's that audience, and how they make a stronger community and society. Make sure that your broader impacts are relevant to each statement. So there are certain things that you talk about in your personal statement, certain things that you talk about in your research statement. Now we're going to jump into some frequently asked questions that may address some of your concerns. Do my broader impacts need to be STEM specific? No. While you definitely should have some that are STEM specific, you can absolutely talk about things that are not STEM specific, that are meaningful to your journey. So you may have really been impacting your local community by teaching literacy to immigrants or teaching English to immigrants. That may be something that's really important to you. That has an impact on your community. Absolutely talk about that. But also remember, your STEM broader impacts can be pretty broad. So you might say, oh, I worked on this policy project with a county councilman when I was an intern as a sophomore. That's not STEM related. Well, the policy project did relate to water purification or wildlife preservation or whatnot, what have you. That's still STEM related, even though the work that you did was policy. So definitely having a good mix of STEM and non-STEM and across the gamut, it can be very valuable for you. So don't overlook valuable experience just because you don't feel like it was enough science in there. Is interdisciplinary work considered a broader impact? Yes, it absolutely can be. Interdisciplinary work means that you're stepping outside of your silo, your lab, your discipline, your research question, your research project, and you're connecting with another area. This can be important because you're bringing new lens, you're bringing new purpose to what you are doing. So this is like being physics and astronomy and working with history. I'm sure there's a connection somewhere there, especially maybe on the astronomy side. But that is 1000% interdisciplinary, a wonderful broader impact, especially what does that collaboration look like and why is that important? Those are going to be great things to talk about. How do I frame my broader impacts for my future goals? This will depend on what your specific future goal will be, but consider how your research and grad school experience will achieve opening doors for whatever your next step is. What do you plan to do postdoc? Some of you will go into a specific postdoc experience or traineeship. Some of you will go on to the professoriate, being on the tenure track, doing research in an academic lab, getting that NSF funding to fund your own lab. By that point, and students to work in that lab. You might be going into the corporate world. You might be going into government or nonprofit management. So how does what you're doing right now in your research serve as a step? How is your experience, your research and your grad school experience preparing you for career goals? Are you learning new skills? Are you making great connections? Are you solving a prerequisite that is a barrier for a certain career path? Um, Talk about that. And how does your experience facilitate valuable connections to you? Some of you might be partnering with a national lab that you're hoping, okay, I can go work in this after I'm doing this collaboration with them. They're going to see what a great researcher I am. They will hire me after this. That's not uncommon, especially with other areas like defense and such. Why is it important to connect the past with the future regarding my broader impacts? This shows reviewers a number of things that can be important to the success of your application, which include continued increased passion for science, dedication to research and education, and effective use in continuing a platform of interest. So the example I used previously, you're teaching multiplication to 9-year-olds in elementary school, and then you're getting a PhD on how math is taught. How are you going back and impacting those same third grade classrooms? So are you going full circle in how you're utilizing that platform of interested in how math is taught and the lives that you are impacting through that? So here's some resources. If you've not yet utilized them, please do look them up. We have our annual solicitation, nsf-grfp.org. This is going to be last year's, and then as soon as this year's is published, it will be posted at that same place. As soon as it is posted, I will be sending it to all of you, all of our registrants for our series, so that you have that resource. Visit our University of Utah website for the GRFP, nsf-grfp.utah.edu, for all sorts of tools and resources, including workshops. If you use that URL, add /workshops, they'll take you directly to the videos, including this one, which will soon be up. The Big 10 ideas can be found at this link. Your faculty mentor, definitely top person to talk with. The University of Utah Writing Center is a wonderful resource that you may or may not have utilized already. They can provide value in a lot of different ways for your application, but they are especially wonderfully talented in helping you outline and jump in, get started, kind of overcome some of those blocks that you might be experiencing right now at the start. And of course, graduate fellowship advising. My office is here to serve you. Those of you who are undergrads, the nationally competitive award office in the Honors College is also available to help you as well. We're all here to serve you as you pursue this goal. Questions, concerns, of course, don't hesitate to reach out to me, matthew.plooster@utah.edu. My phone number is listed here. The fellowship's email is also listed there. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I will be in touch as time goes on before the October deadlines. This fall, we will be doing writing workshops, which will be done during the day. We'll have evening opportunities. We'll have Saturday opportunities. So if one given time does not work for you, we hope that there will be opportunities for you to come, ask your questions, bring drafts, have some current fellows, have myself and other postdoctorate individuals review that, as well as do some peer-to-peer editing, which is very valuable as well. So we hope that you'll continue to be engaged with us. Okay.